guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Hopefully this video finds you all doing well. How you guys doing today? I have had a crazy busy week. We are producing VidCon tomorrow for YouTube Gaming, so we have like a big kind of mobile section going on that. Check it out on the VidCon YouTube channel if you guys want to. And also closing on a house in the next hopefully week. So just have so much work in front of me and all the news. We have a Void 10 times Void opening summoning event going on this coming weekend as well, so definitely look out for some of these really solid Void champions. You guys know who they are by this point in the game, so not going to make a video going through them all. However, I do have a few on my personal wish list as well. Some of the champions that could be getting buffs, right? Blind Seer, who we have on my account, is actually one of them. Today we're actually want to talk about, let's open up a Lucky Shard real quick here. I don't have any Voids, crap, but I have one room for an Ancient. Let's look at that Legendary. Let's start the video with Legendary. Why not, right? Today we're going to talk about, or a rare. Today we're going to talk about the 6 most valuable champions, non-legendary in the game. More specifically, the 3 most valuable champions. But this is actually all getting to a point what I really want to make in this video beyond just talking about these champions, right? Raid Shadow Legends, one of the biggest needs, in my opinion, very curious to hear if you guys agree or disagree with me in the comments below, but one of the biggest needs right now in the game is more compelling rare champions, epic champions as well, but especially rare champions, but even more so than that, to be more specific in what makes these champions the most valuable in the game, is 2 certain abilities. Number 1 is counterattack. Number 2 is AoE, decrease defense, ideally on a 3-turn cooldown that lasts for 2 turns, okay? The big version, 60%. So there's only 3 champions, non-legendary, in the entire game who have those abilities. That's it. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy to me. And it's been this way since the beginning of the game, pretty much. They haven't added anybody in addition. They've added some compelling champions, don't get me wrong, such as, you know, Frozen Banshee and Grave Chill Killer have been pretty solid rare champions they've added to the game, looking for more champions like that, Plarium, if you're watching, right? But let's talk about them, guys. Let's talk about these 3 champions, and I have 3 more that I want to talk about on top of this, and then I have 2 buff ideas. And by ideas, I mean that rather than adding new champions to the game with these abilities, which would be great, especially if they were a rare champion, but 2 champions who I find to be a little bit lackluster right now, who could easily be buffed into one of these champions. So we'll talk about those 2 champions along the way as well. Let's talk about, you know, arguably the most valuable champion, certainly not maybe the sexiest on paper, but it's Skullcrusher, man. He's the only non-legendary champion in the game with counterattack, dude. It's crazy, but it's still, you know, it's imperative. This is a key champion for, I'm sure, a lot of you guys watching. If you don't have Martyr and you don't have Valkyrie, then you're probably running Skullcrusher on counterattack teams. Counterattack's great for really everywhere in the game. You can make a defensive arena team, a little bit niche with a Skullcrusher in there, but you could if you wanted to. You could run it in dungeons, specifically Fire Knight help you out getting that shield down. And most importantly, you know, the area that we talk about most when we talk about counterattack is Clan Boss, man. We need more than just one Skullcrusher. Give us another affinity champion, rare or epic, that has a counterattack. Counterattack's such an amazing ability, it's really a shame, okay? So he has Ally Protect and the counterattack and the unkillable on this champion, all on a 3-turn cooldown. There's no doubt about it, man. His kit is very simple, but it's very effective because of the Stonewall ability on the 3-turn cooldown. And it's a champion that you really don't, you only need 1 book in your Skullcrusher. That's the nice thing about him, right? If you get lucky. You don't care about the smash damage, although it does have a decent multiplier and it is based off of defense. It's his only damage dealing ability, right? It's his only active ability other than his Stonewall. But you only need to put 1 book if you get lucky into Stonewall. If you do, then boom, you're all set with Skullcrusher, right? So definitely a really solid champion. Certainly the most valuable epic in the game just by the fact that nobody else, no other rare, no uncommon, no common, and no epic champion has counterattack. So that's Skullcrusher, right? Skullcrusher is great. It's just a great champion for clan boss and for, you know, basically everywhere in the game. If you are using Skullcrusher, if you do have him, make sure you put him in War Master. That way he can actually put some damage out too for you against clan boss. I saw somebody, somewhat recently I was on a stream and they had a Skullcrusher for clan boss, didn't have War Master, and I'm like, man, well, that will be a difference of millions of damage on top of everything that he's already adding to the table with his kit. Also have, you know, a good retribution champion. You don't need any accuracy on him as well. So that is Skullcrusher. Let's talk about the other most valuable. Actually, let's keep with counterattack real quick here. You can actually stay in my champion collection here. Let's talk about my man, aka one of the worst epics in my opinion. It's Lord Legionary. He was one of the daily login reward champions. Maybe not, maybe the worst is being too mean to him, or maybe you guys agree. I'm not excited about this champion at all, especially the fact that he is an accessible champion, that he is a daily login reward. I was looking at his kit and I'm like, how can you make him better, right? Kind of a lackluster A2. And then his A1 could hit 3 times if heal reduction is there on the target. Could hit 4 times if it's 100% heal reduction. So not bad, I guess, against Fire Knight, but still, I mean, a 4-time hitter on an A1 with qualifiers. It's good. Don't get me wrong for Fire Knight, but I mean, you know, there's champions. You know, Coldheart, for example, has 4 hitters on her A1 in an insane kit. Besides that, right? Not enough. To satisfy at least my wants and desires out of this champion. So Legion's orders, right? Why not make this, instead of a reflect, counterattack? Boom. What do you think? It's on a 4-turn cooldown, so you could keep the continuous heal there as well, give a dual purpose, but then he would go from being an attack to a support champion. I don't think they'd do that major of a rework. Can you guys think of, I was thinking of champions like Warden, champions that have the reflect, who are maybe a little bit underwhelming, that you can make them into a counterattack champion instead. Essentially swap out the reflect damage for the counterattack on all allies, even if it's excluding this champion. I think that's fine. So what do you guys think? Is that a possible buff for Lord Legionary, or does it not fit his kit enough because he's supposed to be an attack-based champion? I think that my AoE Decrease Defense champion buff idea is probably a little bit better, but you know, I don't know. Or just come up with a new champion, right? Just come out with a new champion, preferably non-void. I don't know. Anyway, let's go on to the next most valuable champions in the game, right? Stag Knight. Jeez, man. There's only 2 champions, 2 non-legendary champions that have an AoE on a 3-turn cooldown with a decreased defense, 60%, that lasts at least 2 turns, okay? There are some champions with a 4-turn cooldown, which we'll talk about in just a second. But for dungeons, at least, for dungeon progress, it's really ideal to have it on a 3-turn cooldown. That way, usually, 3 turns, you wipe 1 wave, and you go into the second wave with, boom, decreased defense. Same thing against the bosses. That's not to say that those other 3 champions that we talk about aren't going to be amazing. They are, right? They are all great champions. They don't need buffs. But, you know, there's only 2 champions that have it on a 3-turn, and that's Huntmaster. Huntmaster has a 95% chance. But of course, you could go down in his masteries and grab the sniper and bring it up to a 100% chance, which you should do on Stag Knight, right? But here it is. Huntmaster. All enemies, 3-turn cooldown, has a 100% chance with sniper of placing a decreased defense and a 50% decreased attack buff for 2 turns, man. Stag Knight is, in my opinion, you guys already know this, a top 3 epic champion in the game. Incredibly valuable. No one has, I mean, not only does he have the decreased attack strong version and the decreased defense strong version on an AoE, 3-turn, 2-turn debuff, but I mean, it's just both abilities on one skill. Stag Knight's amazing. He's amazing. He's one of the best additions to this game alongside like Frozen Banshee this year, 2020. So attacks 2 times. It was this year, right, on Stag Knight, or is my year flying by and it feels like this year? Either way, has a decreased speed on his A1. Thank you very much. I'll take that. And then has the accuracy on lead the pack. So I think Stag Knight is, you know, and I talked about this, you know, a few times on the channel before. Put your Stag Knight, if you can get away with it, put him in a shield set. Build him up with a decent amount of HP. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, but providing more versatility in an already incredibly useful champion, right? Now he's going to be there to help support your team with that shield every single turn of all these dungeons as well. So I like putting my Stag Knight in a shield set, building him out. Do I have an HP chest on him? I assume I do. I don't. I have an attack chest on this dude. So if I wanted to, I could put an HP chest on him instead and give him even more. His HP at 21k almost scales pretty well, right? So that's Stag Knight. A lot of options with Stag Knight, but I love the idea of putting him in a shield set. Okay, who's next? Of course, it's a rare champion, War Maiden. You can farm this champion in campaign, man. If you're watching this video, maybe you're just starting out in the game, maybe you're midway through the game, maybe you're late game, and you need a decreased defense, you got one available to you. All you got to do is just go in campaign, run a few runs, and then boom, you have War Maiden, run a few runs. Yeah, that's what you subscribe for, that expert commentary right there. You just run a few runs, fellas. There it is. 3-turn, AoE, 60% decreased defense. Pretty simple. Her damage isn't bad either, okay? So she's a type of champion that you can go as kind of a secondary nuker on your team. Build her out with some crit rate, some crit damage as well, depending on what you need out of your War Maiden. But either way, War Maiden, a little squishier than Stag Knight, certainly, and she is an attack-based champion, right? But she's a rare with a decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. It's exactly what you're looking for. That's it. That's all we have on the 3-turn. Okay, now we expand on the other 3 champions. You guys probably already know who they are, right? Number 1 is, and by the way, I just 6-starred last, I just unlocked Kriela, and I just 6-starred, where the heck is she? Right there, Abyss. Preparing for the buffs, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see how good it is, though. So building her out. Anyway, guys, Terrell, where are you? Terrell is great. I mean, he's defense-based. His kit is amazing. He has the stun, excuse me, and the turn meter chance of depletion on the 4-turn on his A3. So already his kit is more versatile overall than a Stag Knight. However, the only kind of complaint I have, and it's a very subtle one, is that, again, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance to place the big version of decreased defense. It's on a 4-turn. And it's only the debuff only lasts 2 turns, okay? Being nitpicky here, because Terrell basically can get the job done, and you can argue that in a vacuum he's better than Stag Knight, but just because of that, if I'm going to be picky about that one ability that is so hard to get in the game, I would rather have it on a 3-turn. Not on Terrell. I think that would make him way too OP, just saying in general. But Terrell obviously deserves a huge nod for that reason as well. And then the other 2 are Zargala. Zargala's an interesting champion because she has the Devastate that has a chance, if it kills an enemy on a 2-turn, to unlock the A3, the Crack Armor ability, which attacks all enemies 3 times. After that first hit, she has, boom, a 75% chance win booked. Again, you get that sniper, an 80% chance of landing the big version of decreased defense. So there we go. The only downside is it's on a 4-turn cooldown, but again, we talked about it here, that we have the Devastate that will trigger that here and there throughout the battle. So Zargala and War Maiden both have that consistent, potential of landing the decreased defense and being kind of nukers on your team. However, again, I guess being nitpicky here is they're both force affinity. So a lot of people out there are kind of struggling against Ice Golem to have an AoE decreased defense if you don't have a Terrell or a Stag Knight. That comes into my buff idea in just a second. But of course, there is one more AoE decreased defense champion, and she will be receiving a nerf, guys. Madame Ceres. Man, Midnight Ritual, I don't know what they're gonna do to her kit. We don't know that information. Maybe if you're watching in the future, maybe you know already. Hopefully it's not too bad, even though she's like a legendary champion, there's no doubt about it. Removes all buffs from enemies, and then has the decreased attack and decreased defense, just like Stag Knight. But this time it's for 3 turns, albeit on a 4-turn cooldown. So you're still getting it for 3 turns, 1 turn off, 3 turns on, essentially, on her debuffs. But again, in a perfect world, we'd rather have it on a 3-turn cooldown, but still, I mean, with the remove all buffs from all enemies, makes her God tier, double S tier, for arena, platinum arena, anywhere in the arena. Most people who have her use her in the arena, and she's definitely serviceable in dungeons as well. Again, would rather have it on 3-turn, but still, it's an insane ability, an insane kit overall. So those are the most valuable champions, in my opinion, just because of their unique skills that not a lot of champions have. More champions need these skills. So again, Madame Ceres, Zargala, Terrell, Stag Knight, War Maiden, and Skullcrusher. always go to say Skull Crown. So my last idea here, guys, is I want a rare champion with another rare champion with a decreased defense, right? So why not give Fleshmonger? Fleshmonger is already right there. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance when booked of placing a 60% decreased defense for 2 turns on a 4 turn. But I think that even if you keep it a 4 turn, right? Because the rest of his kit is pretty solid too. Has an extra turn, which is actually, these abilities that grant an extra turn afterwards are actually pretty solid. Even if the buffs aren't that great, it just keeps their turn meter going, and it keeps the cooldowns going down lower on these other skills. So because of the granted extra turn, I think you just keep this at 4 turns. I don't think you need it on a 3 turn, because he's getting that extra turn anyway built in, right, on a 3 turn. Anyway, just bring this to 75% chance, and then being able to book it up to 100%. I think that if you give Fleshmonger, that will give us a magic affinity decrease AoE down 60% champion in the game, right? And I think that will actually service a lot of needs for a lot of players, giving one more kind of, free to play-ish accessible champion option, right? So that's my idea for a champion that easily, with one little buff, you can make Fleshmonger a staple of the game, kind of like a War Maiden, right, in this game. So guys, that's my ideas. Do you have any ideas do you think that, these champions are as valuable as I'm saying they are? A. And B, do you have any other ideas, maybe better than Lordly Legionary, that we can buff with a counterattack if we were to buff any rare or epic champion in the game right now, guys? Let me know. There are some champions, by the way, who do have AoE defense downs that I didn't mention because, again, they're on like maybe a 4 or 5 turn, like Spider, for example, right? But they still do have it on an AoE. So just to kind of put that disclaimer out there. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care, guys.